Hey, good morning, everybody. Joining you downstairs again because I missed that small window of time before I get up. When I'm up, but my kids are not up yet, so I had to wake up this morning and read. I met a moose in Maine one day, so that was exciting. All right. Anyway, similar to days past, review a little bit of what we did yesterday, and then take a look at what is on deck for the day. So, with lesson 6 from yesterday, we're talking about women's rights and the idea that Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton went to go speak out against slavery in London, but actually because they were women, not only were they not allowed to speak, but they really weren't even allowed to be seen in public in that sort of leadership position. So we talked about that yesterday, and the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions. I mentioned that as well. One of the main takeaways, and I know it doesn't seem like it would be a good thing, but suffrage is the right to vote. So I browsed through some answers, and there was a lot of like, well, it's suffering. It's when you're treated poorly. No, 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 no. Look right here. Suffrage or the right to vote. Okay, so suffrage has nothing to do with suffering. Suffrage is, the 19th Amendment gave women suffrage. The 26th Amendment gave 18-year-olds suffrage. All right, so it is actually a good thing, the right to vote. So anyway, now let's take a look at what we have today. Let's see. So this one is a slideshow, as you can see. But the reading is actually from a primary source. So it's that eyewitness to history that we've used several times before here. And it's definitely funny, but it's also not as funny when you think this is how actual people were treated, I guess. So she wrote a book or a pamphlet, Good Manners for Young Ladies. And these were some of the, not, this isn't the whole thing. These are just some of the highlights from it. So gait and carriage, so how you walk, how a person moves, and you can read what she thought about that. It talks about how you don't want to walk too quickly, you don't want to make eye contact with anybody on the street, so look ahead. If you go to a library, you should be picked up at a stated hour by somebody. If you go down to raising the dress, this one, very important, you don't want to show too much ankle back in the 1850s. But it talks about when you're walking over the mud, how many you can only hold your dress up with one hand as opposed to two. Again, just a little bit ridiculous. And then you get to how to speak to your husband. Basically, once every month, I make my wife read this section. That's a joke. But it talks about how you would never refer to him by his first name among other people. You would always refer to him as Mr. So-and-so, I believe is how they use it here. So just sort of bizarre, but it makes you think a little bit of, in 2020, what people in society are told how to dress, how to move, how to talk, right? Think of those things. And this isn't for necessarily for 8-year-olds. This is for people who are 17, 18, 19 years old. So just think about that for a minute, right? Who are people in society in 2020 who are told how to do all of these things without being able to decide those things on your own? I'm literally giving you time to think. Well, the two examples I thought of were people who are incarcerated, right? Or children, right? So the idea that grown women are being treated like that sort of says a little. So it might seem small. It's like, well, how many hands to have on your dress or how to speak to your husband are small things. But again, what level of control do we actually continue to do that? I mean, Charlie just got up. He's 4 years old. I let him dress himself, right? So even there is even maybe a little bit more autonomy that way. I don't let him go to museums by himself, though. Then, similar to what we did with the War of 1812, I wanted you to collect some images of the women's suffrage movement. Again, suffrage is the right to vote. This is a good thing. Now, the women's suffrage movement actually was extended for a long time because in 1848, You had Elizabeth Cady Stanton asking for it with the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions. And then, but it wasn't granted until the 19th Amendment, all the way in 1920 was that ratified. So there's quite a span there. So all I want you to do is find some images of the women's suffrage movement. Again, that could be something you Google. You could Google people like Elizabeth Cady Stanton or Susan B. Anthony, any of those things. What else? You could Google like protests or marches. The one example that I gave, so please don't use this one, was just a relatively well-known picture. You can see this is outside the gates of the White House, and these people are asking the president at the time, Woodrow Wilson. So this is towards the end of the suffrage movement because women were granted the right to vote not long thereafter. And you can see that these women represent different colleges. So if you look closely, it says University of Kansas, University of Missouri, Washington College, Leland Stanford, right? Stanford University, Bryn Mawr, Swarthmore, Vassar. And the one I chose this one is because my college right there, Vassar, was actually represented at this. So with these slides, just find 3 different images from the women's suffrage movement and provide just a little something that you notice there. Okay. I'm going to end this video. I'm actually going to throw up a second video where I go into more detail of the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions. Okay. But I don't want to make this into a 20-minute thing here. So I'll stop this one for now, but there'll be another one posted that gets into more detail about those 8 things from the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions. All right. Bye for now.